What's up? We're back. It's the Canceled Misfits show. You have made it. I'm so happy you're here. I really am. Look, guys, we got a good show ready for tonight. I can't wait to show you all the improvements we've made. I have some stories that I'm sure you're going to get outraged about. I have just so much good stuff for you today. I can't wait. Marcus will be on in just 1 second. You know, he's a hardworking man. Can't wait to see him. And as is, we're just going to jump right into the show. And we're here. First story of the night. Now, as always, it's something to get mad about. It's something to do something about. And we can if we hold schools accountable for the things they do. I'm just going to jump right on into this. This is very disturbing. This whole thing is very disturbing. And yeah, I'll just... Here's the headline. Here's the headline. A Connecticut school gave 13-year-olds an assignment in which they were asked to share their sexual preferences, wants, and desires with their teacher. Cue Jim from The Office staring awkwardly into the camera. Because that's how bad this is. Just off of the headline alone, I have so many questions. Why? Why does a teacher need to know this? They do not. This is not something a school should be talking about, because I'm pretty sure most kids don't want to delegate their authority to teach their kids sexual morality to schools. And yet schools keep doing things like this. And it just gets much worse. So much like with the trans narrative, every time I do a story on just how bad some of these public schools are, I get worried that a shark has been jumped. I mean, every story is just as nasty as the last one. Thankfully, this one is not quite as bad as what happened in Loudoun County, where a up-and-coming boy used their gender ideology to be able to use the ladies' bathroom and then raped a girl in there. Nor is it as bad as what happened right here in our very own city of Tallahassee, where a school helped a girl transition and then hide it from her parents. If you remember that episode, there was we had the sheet of paper where it says, "Do not tell the parents." How did a school get away with "do not tell the parents"? Fortunately, there's still a lawsuit against them. I have not been able to see if it's gone on any farther, but it's still very bad. And thankfully, the story's not quite as bad, because again, no kid has transitioned. It's just teachers asking very weird things. And it's not as bad as a school in California that had a secret club that tried to groom kids for the trans lifestyle. I still can't believe that happened. I can believe it, because our world is just getting eviler and eviler by the day at this point. It's up to us to stand against it. And as I read through these examples, I just seem to think that the trans ideology and schools just don't go well together. Yeah, they don't. It does not work, because you're living outside of reality. Thankfully, this is not quite as bad as these examples, and quite is the operative word here. It is still about a very pervy teacher. Yeah, and that's bad, because teachers should not be pervy. So one Connecticut school is under fire for handing out a pizza and consent assignment, where eighth grade students were given a handout stating that pizza can be used as a metaphor for sex. That's a new one. It's the birds and the bees and pizza now. Which instructed students to list their favorite and least favorite pizza toppings in relation to sex. Here are some examples. You have Likes, cheese equals kissing. The assignment states, dislikes, olives equal giving oral. That's quite a jump. So it stated the assignment given to 8th graders within the Enfield public schools. Now that you know this metaphor for sex, let's explore your preferences. Why? Draw and color your favorite type of pizza. What's your favorite style of pizza? Your favorite toppings? What are your pizza no-nos? Now mirror these preferences in relation to sex, the assignment states. So the question is, why do 13-year-olds need to do this? Seriously, my youngest brother is 13. Yeah, he's 13. I know for a fact that he doesn't need to be doing this. I mean, of course, the thought of him trying to do this would be hysterical because of how bad he would fail the assignment. But he does not need to do this. And neither does any other 13-year-old. Even though most do, 13-year-olds shouldn't have to know what oral sex is. They shouldn't know what they do and don't like, as this assignment wants, because they shouldn't be out there trying it out. That's on parents. But that also sheds light on another way society is failing. See, the average age that boys start watching porn is like 9. 9. You heard that right. It's 9. Not even in the double digits. Unfortunately, 13 is about the time a lot of these kids start having sex. Not trying to, they are successfully doing it. Does that mean that they should be doing this as an assignment? Absolutely not. But here's the worst part about this. Why does a teacher, any teacher at a public school with kids of any age, need to know their students' sexual preferences? Is there not like something behind it? I mean, seriously, the article doesn't say anything about the chain of command that let this happen in a classroom full of 13-year-olds. I mean, 13-year-olds. We hit that, but I don't think that's quite gotten to our minds yet. A 13-year-old, a classroom full of 13-year-olds was given this. How? How does this happen? I mean, the superintendent did say it was given inadvertently. Apparently, there was a second form of this where you still had the pizza and it was about communicating non-verbally. Somehow that one was not given out and this one was. So, somehow. Apparently, this was a mistake. But, it just doesn't matter. Everyone in this chain of decision makers should be, at the very least, investigated for pedophilia. Want to know their students' sexual preferences? At 13 years old. I cannot hammer that home enough. At 13 years old, you want to know your students, children, students' sexual preferences. This would be weird if it was a college assignment. At least then it's all adults. But this is 13-year-olds, and I will not stop shouting that. Everyone in this chain of decision makers should probably be investigated for pedophilia or at least, child pornography on their computers. Every single one of them. This is, in my opinion, this is 100% just cause to do that. So, that leads to the next question. What kind of sick mind thinks about this as actual curriculum? Like, not only the chain of command that it had to go through to actually be presented to the children, but who thinks of this in the first place? I mean, obviously pedophiles, but who thinks of this as actual curriculum that's going to pass muster, that's going to get out because parents are 100% going to hear about this? Who thinks this is a good idea? Who thinks they're not going to get in trouble for this? And they may not. That's the bad thing, is no one may hold them accountable for this. But we do live in a world where teachers specifically start teaching to teach sex and gender ideology to elementary and middle school kids. Seriously, go do a TikTok search for it. You do not have to look far. You will find a lot, and it's very, very creepy. There's a whole section of TikTok dedicated to it. There's a whole section of it of people saying that their kids, their students ask them about their sexuality. No, they do not. You tell them about it. And then you turn around and say they ask you about it because you're all a bunch of liars. Of course, the end goal of all this, and this is where it gets weird and even worse, the end goal of all this is, of course, to legalize pedophilia. That's where this is going. You see, first it was that article that we talked about a few weeks ago in USA Today. It was near the beginning of January. It was, and what that article was, it was actually a link to this article with a tweet that said, when most of the public thinks of a pedophilia, they assume it's synonymous with child sexual abuse. A pedophile is an adult who is sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. They do. And some people who sexually abuse kids are not pedophiles. That is not true. You sexually abuse a kid, you are a pedophile. And if you are a pedophile, you sexually abuse kids. It goes both ways because you can't have one without the other. And then it gets worse. It gets much worse. Take a look at this guy because it's very scary. There's several videos of these. Just realized the desktop audio is off. I'm going to restart that. Also, hello, Marcus. Marcus has made it. Hello, Marcus.
Hello.
All right, we're going to go back to the video, and we're going to start it again and have it where you can hear the audio. So, my apologies.
Imagine that an adult male wants to have sex with a 12-year-old girl. Imagine that she's a willing participant. A very standard, very widely held view that there's something deeply wrong about this, and it's wrong independent of it being criminalized. It's not obvious to me that is in fact wrong. I think this is a mistake, and I think that exploring why it's a mistake will tell us not only things about adult child sex and statutory rape, but also about fundamental principles of morality.
So Marcus just watched these videos. We're going to play them all one after the other.
Here. One is, even if you are looking for a threshold, let's say there's a threshold. I'm making this number up, but let's say it's at age 8. Still, that tells you that some adult child sex is permissible. Second, the notion that it's wrong even with a 1-year-old is not quite obvious to me. There are reports in some cultures of grandmothers filleting the baby boys to calm them down when a colicky. Now, I don't know if this is true, but this is sort of widely reported as occurring in at least one culture. And it working, that the grandmothers believe this actually works. If this were to be true, and again, I don't know it to be true, if it were to be true, it's hard to see what would be wrong with it. So, yeah, I guess I think, no, I don't think there's a blanket period beyond which this is permissible. If we're interested in willing participation, which is the way I structured it, then yeah, there's a point below which people aren't willing participants in anything because they don't have intentions or they don't have the sort of mental states that allow for willing participation. But no, I don't think it's blanket wrong at any age.
So in case it was, going by too quickly, this dude just said that having sex with a child of any age, even down to 1 year old, is not necessarily blanket bad. So we're going to finish with this last video, and then we're going to talk about this quite a bit.
They might think that children can't be willing things in general, It's an odd view in that they seem to will things all the time. They will participation in kickball. They will showing up, participating in the bar mitzvah lessons, bat mitzvah lessons. So there's all sorts of things that they will. You might think, well, maybe there's something distinct about sex that they can't really understand it. It's not clear to me that what they're not getting at is consent. I suspect what they want to say is, okay, they're willing participants, they're voluntary participants. They have some understanding what's going on, not understanding we do, but some understanding, but they haven't consented. Perhaps that's so, but that's a different claim from their being unwilling. There's just lots of activities that children engage in that they don't understand all that well. For example, when you first show up to participate in a judo tournament or you prepare for your bat mitzvah, I mean, you have a rough idea, but it's not clear how much you fully understand it.
There's not a chance that he doesn't have child pornography on his computer, right? Or that he's not a pedophile. There's absolutely no way that that's not the case. Marcus, I know you're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
So you just watched these videos right before you hopped on, right? About the professor who's talking about pedophilia and how it's not necessarily wrong.
I know in one of the videos he made a point about kids consent to things all the time, such as like a bar mitzvah or kickball. I thought that was one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard, because who says that kid wants to do that for the bar mitzvah? Who says that kid wants to play kickball? I mean, there's so much more to sex than just doing it. I mean, there's so much meaning behind it between a man and a woman. It's supposed to be, righteous thing between a man and a woman. So there's so much more than just consenting. Those kids have no idea what they'd be consenting to at that point. I think it's extremely wrong, because kids don't grasp what it means and what it is, and I think that's a retarded statement.
Oh yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's ridiculous. And I don't want anybody to accuse me of not debating the issue, so I'm going to go through a couple of them. One, yes, he made the comment that it historically happened a lot. That doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't. We now know that it causes lots of damage and trauma. Kids' brains are not wired for sex, nor what sex is for, the bonding together of man and wife. Kids are not wired for that. So it's a sure way to bring trauma to them. And apparently this guy wants to bring trauma to him. Do you agree with that? Or am I, is historically, because it was done, is it right now? Which I know you don't agree with it. However, I do need to make a quick settings change, so I need you to talk.
I got you. I think you're right. I don't think there's any way that a kid can grasp the meaning behind everything that comes along with sex. I think you say that, these kids can consent to things. Well, I mean, if that's the case, then why can't they buy alcohol, or why can't they vote? Because their brain's not fully developed for decision making. I mean, your brain's not really even fully developed until I think it's like 24, 26, right in that range. And it just makes no sense to say that they can consent to this whenever they probably have zero idea what they're consenting to, what it means, what it can do, the damage it can cause, mentally and physically.
Because, like you said, sex is a lot more complicated than dodgeball. It's having sex is a lot different from rolling a ball at someone and kicking it and, trying to tag them out. It's so disgusting.
And then to top it off, a well-spoken adult who knows what kids are like and knows how to talk to kids can convince a kid to do almost anything. It's not hard to convince an 8-year-old to want to do something stupid like jump off a dangerous height. It's not hard to convince them to do something. It's not very smart, because their kids are very trustworthy. That's why the Bible talks about kids
very
being
trusting,
an example, because they're so trusting of the Bible. Because that's what they are, That's why the Bible says to have childlike faith, because they're so trusting. They have faith in whatever they say. So it wouldn't take much to have a pedophile just take advantage of this whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, historically, they have. So if I'm not mistaken, this guy was actually fired from the college he was at, rightly so. But he won't be the last one to say something like this. And the next person might not be fired. And from that, it'll be slowly normalized. So please, first of all, do you think that this is a slippery slope, or do you think I am making a factually errant logic there?
I think this is more of a cliff. I mean, it's there's not much of a slippery slope. I mean, right now you've got laws in place to help. I mean, of course, a sick pedophile is gonna do it with or the laws with them or not. But what happens is if you change the laws to where consent, no matter what the age is, then I mean, it's just a huge cliff, because then you can just get away with it. I mean, there's no slippery slope to be told. It's just a cliff.
You're right. It's and it's scary that it started. That's the thing too. It's like you had to know it was coming, because the left has to keep getting more perverse and perverse. I mean, they already saying men can be women. That little girls can be little boys. It's just not factually true. And now they're just getting they're going from that to even more and more evil stuff. So please, this is a plea to the people watching. Please, church. Please, conservatives. And please, anyone with any sense left. Please speak up against this. If you hear of this coming up with different candidates, whatever, challenge them, write them, make it an issue, because we cannot lose this battle. We have a lot of battles that we shouldn't have lost that we have. This is a battle we cannot lose. Please speak up on this. And as I seem to do this quite a bit, I'm about to bring this all the way back to the trans ideology, because this is another evil of it. I'm certainly not the first person to say this, and I'm going to go on the record and say that I'm not going to be the last person to say this, but I guarantee you that leftists will use trans ideology to push pedophilia. And I'm going to tell you how they're going to do it. You ready for this? This is some deep insight that I've already said that I'm not the only person saying this, but this is some deep insight for you. Step 1, push trans ideology on kids until it's pretty much mainstream. And it is. It worked. They did it. From Pew Research, a full 40% of Gen Zers believe that they are LGBTQINWTF+. Now, I don't have the stats on how many of that generation support it, but from researching it, seeing TikToks, talking to people, etc., many of the rest are allies. Many of our young people are either consider themselves that or allies of it. It's firmly in the mainstream, which means you now have kids choosing to take hormone blockers, surgeries to alter their bodies, whether it be removing their penis, having their breasts removed, chemical castration, a whole litany of different things. And now the younger kids, of course, are being pushed to it by parents. Those parents honestly should go to jail. Generally, these are the prepubescent kids. But 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, in many cases, that is wholly their decision. Sometimes without the parents' knowledge, as we have also covered here. Which leads us to step 2. Make the case that kids are already making decisions on if they're a boy or a girl, making decisions on if they want to undergo hormone therapy and surgery to mar their bodies. And then say, why can't they consent to sex? That's it. That's the only 2 steps. It's incredibly simple, but extremely effective because of it. That's why you can't play any of their games when it comes to the trans game. If you need an extra kick in your pants, just know that you are protecting not only your kids, but your grandkids and your future great-grandkids. It's them that you fight for when you fight for this. Now, am I taking that too far, Marcus, or am I right?
I think you're pretty right on. Right there, to be honest. I don't. I just don't get how you can even remotely go down letting all this happen that we went down. It's hard to think about, hard to imagine. At times, it makes you want to cry about how bad we can get and how much farther we go down the pole. So, all we can do is speak up and pray. That's all we can do.
You're right. Yes, a lot of prayer and a lot of speaking up, because that is the only way we're going to challenge this culture, and that's what we have to do because the leftists are winning right now. They're winning. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So yeah, it's really sad, and I hate it. And we're going to move on because this just gets weird. We're moving from the sad to the weird. Also, right now, ask questions in chat. I actually have it right in front of me. If you have questions that you want to be answered by us later in the show, if it's good, we might just answer them for you. All right, moving on. Oh, this gets me every time. So hear this. New Biden energy hire, an activist, drag queen, an expert on puppy play. What is puppy play, you might ask? It is when two people dress up as puppies with masks and clothes or not, and engage in sex with each other. That's what puppy play is. And that is who the current administration is hiring. So first off, Marcus, just from that, I can see it on your face. Just from that, what do you have to say?
I think all I can say is laugh. I've laughed and I've tried to laugh silently to where it's made me start to cry a little bit.
Hold on. Let me show you a picture of this. Let me just show you a picture. I know you can't see it, Marcus, but let me show everybody at home a picture of this fella. It's this person right here.
25 seconds, I can see it on the on the live.
It is this fella right here, who was hired. From Chicks on the Right, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Office of Nuclear Energy for the Department of Energy is Sam Britton. That's his name. Some know him better. I love Marcus. I can see you looking into the. Okay, he is better known as Sister Ray Dioactive. His non-binary drag queen alter ego. This is who we have in. This is who's working for the federal government now. So Britton has a dual master's degree in engineering systems and nuclear science and engineering from MIT. He's also a well-known handler in the puppy kink community. The fact that we have the name puppy kink community. Oh, my eyes. I think I have some bleach in here somewhere. My eyes. Wow. So don't worry, he doesn't actually have sex with animals, just men who like to pretend to be animals. I shouldn't be laughing, but like sometimes you have to laugh through the fall of the Republic. That's what's happening right now.
I hate to laugh because this is a serious issue, but like
yes, like it's so bad. I'm still staring at. Hold on, I gotta get this guy off my screen. I can't.
You said puppy kink, and I was like, I had to. I was like, wait a minute, I just hear that right?
Unfortunately, this is a growing thing. I actually have heard of that independent of this story, which just it makes my eyes hurt. So, real quickly,
tell me how you're going to be a handler for other people dressed up as dogs. Like what? What?
I don't know.
What? Apparently, do you walk them in the park?
Apparently, yes. So here's the thing: they have like whole parks for these types of people. It's usually people's backyards, which is just like really sad and pitiful. But I mean, this guy, I don't know if I have my notes later, he goes on college campuses and gives talks about this. So why?
Well, I'd rather it be in somebody's backyard than a big open public park.
Yes.
You know, because how would you like to be taking your kid out of the park and they got to explain why there's 3 grown men walking around the park with 2 of them in doll costumes on their crawling around.
And the other one's probably
what I mean?
wearing leather chaps that like have the butt cut out.
Choo.
Okay.
This is a whole new world.
The whole,
I mean, I
it's
thought, man,
so.
I thought it got bad, but this?
Yes, it's terrible when you. So first off, props for his dual master's degrees. Honestly, those are 2 hard things to do. So credit where credit's due for this dude, unless they gave it to him because he was queer, non-binary, puppy play dungeon master. That would be his qualifications. That would be his qualifications, because that was one of the questions. And like, it's hard to do. And all of that hard work just got invalidated through this. Yep. Not validated, invalidated. Because this hire is because he's an activist and a drag queen. Oh, and he likes to have sex with people dressed as a puppy. Dressed as a puppy.
You know, honestly, if I were him and I was in that position of power, I'd honestly be a little upset knowing that I got put in that position, not based off my hard work of my college degree, my double master's degree, because that is hard to do.
Yes, it is.
Hard to do.
Especially from MIT and nuclear engineering.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. He's clearly at least book smart. So, I mean, we know he's got some brains. So how would you like to be known not for how smart you are, not for your accomplishments, but for being a drag queen who dresses up and has sex with puppies? Like, people dress up as puppies.
It's a good question. He's a diversity hire. That's what he is. And this is the same administration who openly says they will pick a black woman for SCOTUS, the seat that's opening up, simply for being black and woman. Which I have to say, that is very discriminative to the Australian Aborigines women living in America. When is it going to be their turn? But all jokes aside, back to this guy. He's a diversity hire. So his website says, whether they are walking the halls of Congress to help educate the Hill on the differences in advanced nuclear reactors, or belting out their favorite tunes with the gay men's chorus of Washington. This just gets better and better. It is hard to miss Sam Britton's passion for change about the world, or changing the world, and potentially their stilettos. He is the they that he is talking about. So at the end it says they, Sam Britton. So it's dude. It's a him. It's a he, him. I hate the fact that we have to use pronouns like this. But that's who he's talking about. Britton gives, oh my goodness, Marcus, I want to get your face for this. You ready for this? Even though you've probably read it on here. Britton gives Kink 101 lessons at universities and calls Anthony Fauci Daddy Fauci. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Honestly, here's my question. Between doing all of this, is he actually going to have time to, find a place to dispose of our nuclear waste? Like, his actual job, or is he just going to be there as an activist? I mean, plus also Daddy Fauci. Like, could you at least idealize someone who has been right on anything during this pandemic? I mean, Fauci's batting approximately .000. He has a 0 batting average on this.
My question is, does Daddy Fauci go to Kink 101 or whatever that class is called? Does he go to that class?
He probably
Just
has.
Curious.
He probably has private sessions in his office at home where there's a giant picture of himself that he just. I'm done. Yeah. Not going down that road. So Sam claims that.
And actually, he has a picture of the coronavirus up on his wall.
No, he actually has a giant, like full-size, almost full-wall picture of himself. They did a documentary. Dead serious. They did a documentary.
How self-centered. Like,
Disney Plus through National Geographic did a whole documentary on Fauci, and I know we're going down a rabbit hole, but if that doesn't tell you how mind-numbingly narcissistic he is, because saying I am the science doesn't do that. Anyway, getting off topic. Back to this. Sam claims that at the age of 13, he believed he was the only gay person in the world because the government had killed them all. He thought the government was looking for him, and he thought he was dying from AIDS. Oh my god, this story just keeps getting better and better. Listen, I know that there are many, many 13-year-olds who are idiots who grew up to be productive and meaningful members of society. I was an idiot at 13, Marcus. I'm sure you were as well. Nothing against you, yeah. But everybody's an idiot at 13. But this goes past a lot of 13-year-olds. This doesn't sound like a mentally stable person. Do we want someone who's not mentally stable figuring out where they're going to put nuclear waste? The fact that
I don't know if I want somebody that's doing puppy kinks to do nuclear waste. If he's more focused on puppies and kinks and walking around trying to educate the House, Congress and all that with about the gay songs. Was that what it said?
Yeah, the men's gay choir of Washington D.C. or something like that.
So I mean, why? I'd rather him focus on his job of nuclear waste than I would all this bullcrap. What's he doing there?
Exactly. So I don't say this just to hate on this guy. I mean, it's bad. This diversity hire is. I mean, that's what I want to hit on here. Is that the leftists live in a clown world, and they're trying to drag it down with drag us into it, and this is the federal government that this guy's working for. It's not like the city of Two Egg, Public Waste Disposal or something. Two Egg, for all you people who don't live in Jackson County or never have, is a very small town. You can literally throw an egg twice and you're past it. But they live in a clown world. This guy has actual power. And I imagine he's only the first of these clowns that are going to be put into positions of power in the federal government, because you already live outside of reality with the trans stuff. Like, what at this point, what does it matter who you put in? So again, this is why we have to be very careful who we vote into office. The Congress people we vote in, president, obviously. I mean, even down to the local levels. Because this is what the leftists with a unified mind, that's where they beat us a lot of times, is there's infighting among the right a lot of times. But with the left, you're either with their position or you are cast out. And because if you are cast out from the left, by the left, you are literally on your own. You're on your own, which is why they push forward with one mind. This is what they want. We cannot let them win. Any last words on this, Marcus?
No, I think I've said everything I can. I didn't ever think I'd ever encounter someone focused on kinks and puppy kinks and gay men songs in the United States than I would be actually doing your own job at the White House.
Taking care of nuclear waste.
Yeah, something that important of all things. It's not like he's, something simple like the president's poopy scooper for his dogs. He's in charge of something major. He is. Get somebody that's going to do the job and nothing else. I mean, I don't want somebody in a position of power that big that's going to screw around. I don't care. I mean, I don't care if they're... Well,
he's not the only diversity hire. He's not the only diversity hire in this administration. The Secretary of Transportation, who, by the way, proved his job was not needed when he was gone for paternity leave for 2 months with his partner. He's gay. And he and his partner adopted kids, and he spent 2 months of maternity leave, and no one realized he was not coming into the office for 2 months. His job is not needed. But that's who they want to run for president next. A failed mayor of South Bend whose only qualification is he likes dudes. That's it. And that's who these people are going to continue to put into positions of power, because that is a cabinet level position.
Well, it's easy to form somebody that's that low on the totem pole. Like, hey, we made you. Now do what we want.
Exactly. That's 100% you're right, and it's scary. We're going to go north now to Canada, because we've been talking about them quite a lot recently. And of course, more story broke this morning. So whenever, and Marcus, this is where we're going to talk about Star Wars a little bit. I know you are happy about that. Whenever I hear of any country invoking emergency powers, I always think of the scene from Attack of the Clones in Star Wars. It's a Star Wars movie, for those of you who've never seen it, where Chancellor Palpatine, the head of the Galactic Senate, stay with me, is given emergency powers to deal with the separatist movements. Basically, it's a civil war going on. Now, I know you're asking yourself, why am I talking about a fictional governing body in a fictional universe? In the not-so-fictional country of Canada, there has been a group of truckers who have basically invaded Ottawa to protest the vaccine mandates that the Canadian government is trying to force into their arms. We've been talking about this. We obviously stand by the truckers who don't want to face down the needle to do their jobs. But this story just this morning took a turn for the worse. Justin Trudeau, who is the Canadian Prime Minister, just invoked Canada's Emergency Act to try and clear out these protesters. And thankfully, these protesters are having none of it. David Paisley, this is from the Daily Wire, David Paisley says he has been protesting for weeks now, and as a street captain, helps organize protesters and direct those who wish to support the cause with funds, goods, or services. Paisley told the Daily Wire that Trudeau's announcement, which made headlines across major news organizations in the US and Canada, went off barely noticed by the protesters on the ground. No one really cares about any new announcement. I mean, the police have been breaking the law long before any emergency power. They were taking our fuel away. A Canadian judge actually says they can't steal the truckers' food or water or anything like that, or fuel. They were arresting people for purely having jerry cans or having empty tanks of fuel, he said. They've already been doing these emergency powers, and all it does is make people dig their heels in more, Parsley added. Here's the important one. The irony, and this is what I originally thought watching this, the irony is that these very powers and threats are why we are here. So first off, good on them. Big government is a bad design at its core. It's wasteful, oppressive by its very nature, and as it gets bigger and bigger, it swallows its citizens under its weight more and more. Now, which is why what a power-hungry prime minister with a communist for a dad, oh, sorry, shouldn't be saying that, another prime minister for a dad, we definitely hear, Marcus, you're on, we definitely hear do not want to feed into the conspiracy theory that Fidel Castro is Justin Trudeau's dad. We definitely do not want to do that, even though his mom was a swinger and in Cuba 8.5 months before Trudeau was born, and they look exactly alike. But we do not want to press that. We do not want to put that conspiracy theory out there. But these power-hungry tyrants, whenever they grant themselves emergency powers, they generally don't want to give it back. Have you seen that at all, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, that's generally how it goes. If you get something and you like it, do you want to give it back? I mean, it's like if at work they give you a new truck and they say, hey, this is going to be your new truck for while your old truck's in the shop, because your old truck had a transmission go out or something. I mean, this is nothing similar by any means, but you ride that new truck for a couple of weeks and you don't want to give it back. And that's just something that everybody can attain to, Maybe you get a rental car while something's happening, or you don't want to you may not rental car more. You may not want to give it back. So I mean, it doesn't take much.
And just imagine the jump. Yeah, just imagine the jump between getting a new vehicle or a rental vehicle and having power over millions and millions of people. There's a little bit of a difference there.
I've never seen a good outcome of giving somebody a bunch of power. I've never seen it turn out good. I'll name one. Anybody that can name one time where somebody's been handed a bunch of power and it turned out good. I don't know any, but I can give you cases where it's not.
Yes.
I mean, there's plenty of them. I mean, that's where all the history that's bad starts with, is people that had too much power.
Yeah, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. At least for humans. So Trudeau announced in a press conference Monday afternoon that he was authorizing the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act, a law passed in the late 1980s to take the place of the War Measures Act. The act strengthens Canadians' law enforcement. But actually, it's funny because that was only used once in a peacetime, the War Measures Act, and it was Trudeau's father, his actual prime minister before him father, who used that. So, like, father and son, because he's definitely not Fidel Castro's son. So the act strengthens Canadians' law enforcement abilities to find and imprison violators, ensures the operation of essential services such as towing rigs. Trudeau said during this press conference it also empowers banks and financial institutions to freeze the accounts of any person or business suspected of being involved with an illegal blockade. That's a scary amount of power for an executive branch of a government to wield. And this is all at Trudeau's behest, of course, because why not at least, instead of actually going out and meeting with the leaders of these protests and seeing if you could come to some sort of peaceful negotiation, no, he'd rather nuke them, which is what he's trying to do here. But why all this in Canada worries me is, even though there are very fundamental differences between Canada and America in the way that our government's set up, the way our charters, or their charter and our constitution are set up, there's very fundamental differences. But a lot is the same. A lot is the same. And I don't want to see this kind of stuff start to happen in America. And that includes the last step, which is if they refuse to give power back. So in the same Star Wars scene I started with, Chancellor Palpatine promises that he will lay down those powers when the crisis has abated. Now look, I get that he's basically evil incarnate in that universe. He's also a power-mad tyrant, not unlike other people in the world. And yes, this has been a very peaceful protest. They just have parked their trucks all throughout Ottawa and are blaring their horns a lot because they don't want to have to do a vaccine mandate to keep working. They don't have the Supreme Court to back them up like we did here in America. Plus Trudeau's something like 16%. New poll came out that like 16% of people would actually vote for Trudeau now, which is just hilarious. He thinks Canadians are on his side, or at least he says he thinks they are, but they are 100% not. But anyway, this is what I'm scared of happening in Canada and the USA, is that emergency powers being used and abused and never put down. See, all throughout this pandemic, we have seen this happening. All around the world, we have seen this happening. Just look at Australia. Just look at what they tried to do with the vaccine mandates here at home. Now, to continue the Star Wars theme of this segment, there's another scene where Palpatine tells Anakin that all people with power are afraid to lose it. And he is spot on. Am I right, Marcus?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's why people like Anthony Fauci cannot let this pandemic die. Daddy Fauci. Oh, my goodness. It's why the Biden administration had to try to force the mandate down our throats by citing health crisis. It's why the truckers can't back down, because if they do, Canada's government knows that all they need to do to force down whatever emergency powers they need is by drumming up some sort of emergency. And those can be very easy to have appear magically. And lastly, it's why we have already lost, as American people, but really the people of the world have lost to their governments. Because we have submitted to the government in a way that I have not seen in my lifetime. So now the government knows all we have to do is say, all the government has to do is say there's a health crisis. Lock up, mask up, get the vaccine. And it doesn't have to be COVID anymore. It's very easy to scare. Obviously, with this cold for the most people, it's still scaring people 2 years later. So we the American people have lost in a lot of ways, and that scares me for the future. You got anything on this, Marcus? You there, Marcus? I see you're having a little bit of trouble. All right. Marcus is a little having a little bit of trouble with his connection. So we're going to move on. Sorry, Marcus. This is the last one. I actually don't have any notes on this, so this is going away. And me and Marcus, we're going to riff on it. Looks like I'm going to riff on it. This happened in Illinois. They rescinded their mask mandate for students. And they rescinded their mask mandates for students, and this is still happening. The masks are optional, and this is still happening, and it is sick. So we're just going to watch this real quickly.
It is the law by Governor Pritzker to let me out of this room. You can't lock me in a room. You can't lock me in here.
He's trying to push out.
Please let me out.
And this dude's literally.
It is the law by Governor Pritzker to let.
So this dude is literally holding the door shut. He's literally acting like me and my little brother when he tries to come into the room that I'm in and I don't want him in there, where I hold the door shut. And while, yes, that is still technically a grown man doing that to a kid, it's a little bit different when it's brothers versus a school administrator locking a kid up in a room and pushing the door shut every time just because he's not wearing a mask. That's not going to have any lasting damage, is it? It certainly is. But Marcus, are you back on with us? Oh, looks like he's still having trouble. So for the school's credit, they did denounce this. They did say it was wrong. Of course, it happened in 2 different schools in the same district. So someone in power is, telling people it's okay to do this. It is not okay to do this. And I really hope that at the next school board meeting there, parents rip into them. And the one after that. And the one after that. Because this is evil. This is the COVID. This is exactly what I just talked about. Absolute power is corrupting. And people have gotten power because of COVID. And now they don't want to give it up. So that's why this guy has to hold that door shut on that kid. So we need more politicians like DeSantis, who stood in front of everybody and said, "You try and take power in my state, and I will stand against you." Because few people are like that, especially few politicians. So I guess that's a DeSantis 2024 ad. Marcus is back. Marcus, you have anything you want to say before we go out on that last video of the kid being held shut in a room? Can you hear me? Oh, I've deafened it. Sorry, Marcus, do you have any last words on the kid being held in the room?
I don't know what happened there, but that was horrible. Absolutely horrible. That's uncalled for. That's completely uncalled for. That teacher needs to be in trouble completely. Absolutely.
100%. All right, guys, that'll do it for tonight. We actually ran a little bit over. I'm seeing we're right at an hour. I'm so thankful that y'all showed up. I'm thankful y'all watched. I'm thankful Marcus, he actually was a little late because he got in out of the field late. So he's just doing what great friends do and supporting me. And also doing a good job bringing some extra stuff to the show. I'm glad we finally have him on camera. So, first of all, like this video. Leave a comment, not just in the live chat, but in the actual comment section. That helps me so much. If you're not, subscribe to this video, because that helps a lot. Hit the little bell. You'll hear a ding in your head. That's me sneaking up behind you. Don't worry about it. I promise it's not for nefarious purposes. I am not the federal government. And then maybe share it around. Share it on Facebook. Share it wherever you do social media. Also, go follow my social media. It's down in the bottom bottom right hand of the screen. Just remember that you should do something that a leftist will try to cancel you for, because you're probably doing it right, and they get mad at you. You just look at them and say, checkmate, try again later. All right, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your day, rest of your week. We will not have a show next week, but there is good